share your experience, strength, and hope with us.
Hey, y'all. My name is Jay Westbrook. I'm an alcoholic. Sober today by God's mercy in the practice of the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm old. I use notes. And this one says start with a joke. What's the only thing an alcoholic does in moderation? The steps. Yay. And so I'm here in Tupelo, Mississippi. Happy to be coming to you from Mississippi. I'm loving it here. After a lifetime in Los Angeles, I moved here about 25 months ago, and life is good in the South. A lot of Southern graciousness, a lot of God, a lot of humility, a lot of kindness, a lot of giving people the benefit of the doubt. I have a friend in Beverly Hills I was talking to, and he said, "Yeah, Mississippi. I made a movie down there, and man, the people are so kind, but it's weird. There's like a church on every corner." And I said, well, maybe there's a connection, between kindness and a church on every corner. Maybe not, but, I'm from Los Angeles and we got a liquor store on every corner and people don't seem quite as kind in LA. So I'm not supposed to say LA because people here think of it as Lower Alabama, not Los Angeles. Anyway, I'm not sure what I'm going to say. I know I'm going to tell you a love story, and because I'm a lover and I'm in love with my wife. I'm in love with my life. I'm in love with my God. I'm in love with my career. I'm in love with Alcoholics Anonymous, with our fellowship, with our steps, and with our traditions. And I think I'm going to save the romantic love story, the Jay and Nancy, or Jancy, as we are known in Los Angeles, that AA couple, Jay and Nancy, Jancy. And I'm going to save that one, tell it to you another time. And I think I'll tell you my love story about the traditions another time. And so that what that leaves is love in AA and loving the steps and our fellowship. And, just let me stop talking for a minute about me and just say the most important stuff. And that's welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a solution for your alcoholism. Whether you're black or white, male or female, gay or straight, young or old, old-timer, newcomer, returnee, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a solution for your alcoholism. If you're homeless or sheltered, educated or illiterate, tattooed or still an empty easel, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a solution for y'all's alcoholism. And if you got up into these rooms like me thinking, oh my God, I can't believe it's come to this and I'm with a group of losers like you. Or you're anything like me and simultaneously felt, oh my God, I can't believe a group of people like you would let a piece of shit like me even stand in the doorway, let alone sit down next to you, let alone have you remember my name. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a solution for your all's alcoholism. And if y'all are anything like me and you got up into these rooms with some issues, we probably don't have the solution for your issues. But whatever it is, it'll probably work a whole lot better if you're clean and sober. And I got here with issues. I'm a high school dropout with a master's degree, but a high school dropout. I went to 16 schools in 11 years and always was the new kid, never did 1 year at one school, always came mid-semester, mid-school year. I'd like to tell you I was ignored, and what I was lonely, and I isolated. I tried, made no effort to make friends, and I didn't have any. Imagine that. And I guess that gave me some issues. And I come from a New York atheist, communist, theatrical family. And I used to say, I guess that gave me issues too, but I'm not sure what they were, but I am sure what they were. Drilled into my head, there is no God, there is no God. Don't believe in God. It makes you weak. God is the opiate of the masses, blah, blah, blah. And so it made it really hard when I got to this program and got here dying and looked up on the wall and saw God, 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 and listened for a few minutes, and I heard God, 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 and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm in the wrong place. And an atheist, that was atheist, and then communist, they drilled into my head that poor people are good simply because they're poor, and people with money are bad simply because they have money. And so that led to a lot of financial self-sabotage in my life, without a doubt, because I just played those tapes and I didn't question them. And I'm also a survivor of childhood incest and torture. When I was 3 years old, my parents gave me away. I hope they gave me to a family that they thought was a good family. I don't know. But they gave me away. And I was 3 years old and terrified of the dark. And they locked me in a pitch black closet for 3 years. And I lived, toileted, slept, ate, existed in that closet, pulled out once a day to be washed, to be ritualistically tortured and or raped by 3 adults. And it shattered me. I lost my sanity. I lost my trust, my innocence, my safety. I lost my security. I was filled with rage and hate that was unsafe to turn on my perpetrators, and I learned to turn it on myself. And that's a behavior that lasted for many decades, hurting myself with my wounds and turning appropriate anger towards others inward on myself. And I think it's equally important to say that all that had nothing to do with my alcoholism. Nothing. There's so many people who have that history of horrendous abuse, far worse than mine, as children, and they didn't turn into drug addicts and alcoholics, and I did. And it wasn't because of that. I think I was born with a disease. And I know that's true because my wife was a hope to die drug addict and alcoholic, raised in the most stable, loving, secure, supportive, non-abusive home in Wichita, Kansas, grew up on one street, went to kindergarten, elementary school, junior high, and high school with the same group of kids. They stayed friends for life. And she ended up with the same disease I have, alcoholism, and the same solution to that disease, the 12 steps and the 12 traditions and a loving God and a powerful fellowship. And we just couldn't come from more different backgrounds, and yet we both had the same disease. So I don't believe that my disease, and I'm not an expert on any of this, but I don't believe my disease was situational or environmental or because of what happened to me as a child. When I was 6, I was pulled out of that situation and put back with my parents and periodically re-victimized, just because predators can spot prey, something in our energy, our expression, our gait, our posture. But it wasn't like it had been, it was occasional. And then I think I was 15 or 16 and we moved to California, to Los Angeles. And about a year later, I found drugs and alcohol. And oh my God, it saved my life. It was so not a problem. It was so incredible a solution. And it kept me from suiciding. It let me stay on the planet. It made me feel like I had skin over my exposed nerves. Let me exhale. And we talk about the ease and comfort that comes at once from taking a drink. And I remember that ease and comfort. Today I have the ease and comfort that comes from a loving God. And that's what I needed then, but I didn't know it. And because I was an atheist. And and so I used drugs and alcohol for quite a bit, and it got me through some stuff, but it made me stupid. And the stupidity led to bad decision making. And in spite of being an atheist, that decision making put me in front of a power greater than myself. His name was Judge William Ritzie, and he slammed that gavel down on my first ever encounter with the criminal justice system and sentenced me to double 5 to life in the penitentiary. And I can't say I wasn't happy, I'll tell you that, but I can't say I disagreed with him or thought that it was inappropriate or unfair. I just didn't want to go because I had this incredibly beautiful, like movie star beautiful wife. And she was kinder than she was beautiful. And I know movie star because I'm from Los Angeles. She was it, man. She had that kind of beauty. And but I had no choice, and off I went to the penitentiary with no fear because I was ignorant. You know what? I didn't even know there was a difference between jail and prison. Had no idea. And took about 5 hours to learn the difference. That first night I was coming up from Chow Hall and turned a corner and 5 guys grabbed me and beat me almost to death. And they gang raped me. And I found out the way the penitentiary works is that once that happens, that's who you are till you're out. And so I spent a pretty horrendous amount of time. Let's just say my time in prison was pretty horrendous. And when I got out, I was consumed with bitterness and rage and blame and cowardice and irresponsibility and shame and PTSD. You know, I'm going to say something that I don't often say, and I don't know why. I'm sort of feeling compelled. I'm just looking at some very kind faces in these Hollywood squares. And I will tell you that something happens to people who are raped. It doesn't happen to every one of them, and it certainly those people who experience multiple rapes, it doesn't happen every time. But when a loving God made us, you know, he made us as human beings and spiritual beings and intellectual beings and sexual beings and emotional beings. And we're wired, you know, we have hormones, we have nerves. And there were 2 times in the penitentiary where I was being gang raped. And if you'd have looked from outside, you'd have said, he wants it. He's enjoying it. And internally, I was screaming, no! But my body, my physiology betrayed me. And that's what it looked like. And the shame from having responded in those 2 situations, the trauma from having responded, the shame and the trauma were greater, as great, maybe greater than the actual physical assault. And man, I got out of that penitentiary and I was so filled with all of those qualities and a self-hate that was monumental. And I went right back to the lifestyle, back to Nancy, had this beautiful, loving wife, and we drank and used together. And I know that we engage in behaviors that validate our self-image and what we believe our worth is. If I think I'm a tough guy, I'm going to get in a lot of fights. If I think I'm a bad boy, I'm going to end up behind bars a lot. If I think that I'm a Romeo. I'm going to end up with a lot of partners. And, you know, what I learned at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 years old was that my only worth and value were to stick a dick in. And there I was, a straight man going out and engaging in behaviors that validated that belief. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about the cycle of spree and remorse, spree and remorse. And for me, it was more like spiral and remorse. I'd engage in behaviors that were pitifully and incomprehensibly demoralizing and be so filled with shame that I'd have to get loaded. And once I got loaded, I'd go back to those behaviors. And then I'd go home and Nancy would look at me with this love in her eyes and I'd start a fight so that I could push her away and go, what is wrong? To myself, I'd say about her, what is wrong with you that you would love a piece of shit like me? And I'd push her away. And I just could not make my life work. And I went to school and I did really well, you know, because I guess I'm smart. Who knew? And I wanted to be a veterinarian and took a lot of classes that ended in ology. Not all of them, you know. There was calculus and physics and chemistry and anatomy, but there were the ologies, the physiology, the embryology, histology, immunology. I mean, a lot of science classes and hard classes, and I did really well. And but near the end of getting my bachelor's degree, I started sticking a needle in my arm, and then when I looked in the microscopes, everything was swimming. And in a couple of classes, histology and embryology, I got my first ever C's, and it pulled my GPA down just enough to not get into veterinary school. And it broke my heart and validated my belief, you know, that the world was against me and I was a victim. And I have a friend here in Tupelo, Mississippi. I've only been here 25 months, but I love this woman. She's the gold standard here in AA in Tupelo, Mississippi. And she always says, victims get drunk. And I absolutely love that line. Victims get drunk, and I was a victim, and I got drunk. And I was a victim, and I got drunk. And, you know, and then I went on to graduate school and got more letters after my name. And y'all, I'm not going to bore y'all with the drinking and using part because you know it. And, you know, I was a high bottom externally, high bottom, low bottom internally. I was engaging in pitiful and incomprehensibly demoralizing behaviors. I was filled with a sadness and a loneliness and a feeling of being cornered and trapped and hopeless and victocrat. And it's not fair, and the world is against me, and you don't understand. And if you'd had my childhood, you would drink and use the way I do, and it's their fault, and all that shit that just kept me drunk. And on the outside, I had this absolutely stunningly beautiful wife. And okay, I've said enough about her. I may as well show you a little picture. That was Nancy, and stunningly beautiful wife. I drove a nice car. We had a beautiful apartment in West Hollywood, California, and we never had children because we didn't like them. Thank God we didn't have them. There are people who don't like them, and they go ahead and have them. I can't figure that out, but here's alcoholism for you. We don't like children. I don't like children, and I'm Associate Director of Medical Research at a children's hospital in Los Angeles. And I hate my job, and I dislike the population that I'm serving, children. But I had a business card and it said Associate Director of Medical Research. And I thought that would impress you. And I couldn't even look you in the eye, and I knew I couldn't impress you, but I thought my business card would. And so I stayed in a job that I hated. And it got worse and it got worse. You know, I had a good salary. We went out to eat all the time. I played the big shot. I bought people dinners. I bought people drinks. I had the bag of cocaine because I was dealing cocaine and I could control the room and get that sense of power when, like I said, what I needed was a source of power, not a sense of power, but a source of power. And I wasn't looking for that. And I was upside down financially, of course. The credit card bills were crazy in spite of having a really good salary. And I only drank call brands. You know, there wasn't any cheap gin. It was Tanqueray, and there was good bourbon, and there was good tequila. And I just hit a point where I couldn't do it for one more day. I just couldn't. I could not. And I decided to kill myself. And all I can say is, thank God I'm an alcoholic, or I would have gone home, put the gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger, and you all would have had a different speaker tonight. But I'm an alcoholic, and I'm grandiose, and I'm arrogant, and I'm immature. And so I decided, oh my God, you know what I could do? I could stage it to look like an accident, and then Nancy'd be better off without me, and the accidental death policies would kick in, and she'd have money, and the world would be better without me, and I'll be out of my misery. And so I set it up and structured it to look like an accident, and it was on, it had to be done, and you don't need the details, but it had to be between 3 and 5 o'clock on a Tuesday or Friday because the accident was blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching my watch and waiting, and a public service announcement came on the television, and it was a curly-haired guy in a suit, and I always had a suit on, and he stepped into a public bathroom stall and opened a little vial of cocaine, and he did a one-on-one, and he's closing the vial. It slips, and it falls on the floor and rolls behind the toilet, and he gets down to get it, and his cheek is touching the seat of this public toilet, and they freeze frame, and the voiceover says, "Welcome to the glamorous world of cocaine. If you have a problem, call this number." And I'd seen it 99 times and thrown it the finger, and that day I burst into tears and picked up the phone. And the guy said, "This is Cocaine Anonymous. Cocaine Anonymous, this is Dean Katz. How can I help?" And I just started crying, and he held me on the phone for 90 minutes. And then he said, "You know, there's a meeting and you need to go, and it's near your house. Go now." And thank God it was Cocaine Anonymous, because had it been Alcoholics Anonymous and they said, "We have a meeting over here in a church," I wouldn't have gone, and you all would have had a different speaker tonight. But it was Cocaine Anonymous, and they said, "We have a meeting in a bar on the Sunset Strip. It's called Carlos and Charlie's." I'd been in that bar. I'd sat at the bar and drank, and I knew I could go there. And I went down and got on my motorcycle, and the bike and I fell over, and I couldn't get it back up. I could barely get me back up, and I got a cab up to Carlos and Charlie's and walked in. And in that meeting, I felt the breath of a God in whom I did not believe, blowing on me with a gentleness that I did not deserve, and I had not earned. And I've been sober ever since. And I can't tell you what was said during that meeting, but I heard the laughter. I heard an honesty. I heard a vulnerability that was completely beyond my experience. I'd never encountered anything like it. And at the end of that meeting, they said, "Honey, you are really sick." And I went, "Oh my God, thank you." They said it wasn't a compliment. It was an observation. "You're really sick. You'd probably benefit from morning meetings. We're cocaine addicts. We don't do anything in the morning. Go to Log Cabin. It's an AA meeting on Robertson in West Hollywood, and you can talk about drugs." And on Monday morning, December 5th, 1988, my third day sober, I went to Log Cabin. And, we can spot the newcomers. And at the top of the steps, there was a gay boy. It was West Hollywood, Boys Town. There's a gay boy in a pink shirt. And he took one look at me and he knew I was new. And he said, "Hi, honey. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you leave your fantasies at the door, all of your dreams can come true in AA if you're willing to work for them." And holy shit, I just about fell over because I had a dream of working with the dying, and I had a fantasy that I was living. And that fantasy was, if I give you this business card, you'll be impressed. And you weren't. And I sat through that meeting, and those of you that are new, you just understand your life will get better in spite of us. We're all fucking crazy, and we're going to say some shit to you that just doesn't make any sense. Turn it over. Turn what over? We don't know, but just turn it over. And you got to surrender to win. What? I don't what does that mean? And don't make any big decisions in your first year. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God. Well, that sounds like a big decision. You said don't make any big decisions. We're crazy. Just hang out anyway. It will get so good. And you said, don't make any big decisions in your first year. So with 3 days sober, 8:30 a.m., that meeting ended, and I drove into the hospital and quit my job and went downtown to County General Hospital and got a job as a cancer nurse for a year, and then pain management nurse for a year. And then I made the leap to hospice. And for the last 33 years, I've been a hospice nurse and a grief and loss counselor. And when I moved to Mississippi after a lifetime in LA, I left my nursing license active in Los Angeles. I didn't make it happen here in Mississippi. I'm kind of done with getting up in the middle of the night and going out on death calls, but I'm still doing the grief and loss work. And what happened in LA was, I held on to being an atheist, and there I was as a hospice nurse, and there was God. The place where life and death meet is filled with God, period. Period. That wasn't a thought or a question or a theory or a hypothesis. For me, it was an experiential certainty. I found God. Right at the juncture of life and death, there was God, undeniable to me. And holy crap, changed my life. And if you'd have said, why is it, Jay, that you don't believe in God? I would have told you, I'm a scientist. I've had embryology and histology and immunology and physiology and microbiology and ology and that's why I don't believe in God. And it was bullshit. I was not a scientist. A scientist is curious, investigative, open-minded, and I was none of those things. I was just parroting what my parents had said to me. And I'm so pleased that I got God struck, and it's good, My life is so different and so good. And Nancy, I don't want to tell her story, but she didn't get sober, and then she did. And when she finally stood up on my 90th day, what happened was she was not interested in sobriety. So I got her a big book because that'll do it. And she used it as a coaster, and it was great. She used it as a coaster. And one night I was going out the door and she said, "Oh my God, you're going to one of those things again?" And I said, "Yes, baby doll, every night, every morning, every night." And I've told you before, you don't have to be sober to go. And it was like she had never heard it. She went, "What?" I said, "You can come. You don't have to be sober." She said, "Can you wait a minute?" And I identified as an alcoholic. I guess I'm also an Al-Anonic because she ran into the kitchen and I counted. I heard the sound, and that's an Al-Anon thing, counting the number of drinks, counting how many minutes before you take the next drink, Al-Anons, we count. And I heard the sound of one ice cube dropping into a nice crystal glass because, if you put 3 ice cubes in, you can't get as much booze in. And then I heard her pouring her bourbon and doing a couple lines of cocaine. And she came out and there's a little coke caked in the corner of her nose. And she had a nice crystal rocks glass and a smile on her face. And she said, "Let's go." And off we went. And she had no interest in getting sober, none. She just was lonely. And she started going to a meeting with me every night, and she caught alcoholism through her ears. Who knew? And that's how it happens for a lot of people. And it happened to her on my 90th day. Nancy stood up and said, "My name is Nancy Morgan Westbrook. I'm an alcoholic and a cocaine addict," and stayed sober the rest of her life. Absolutely amazing. And we became Jancy. And I'll tell you about that another time, but we were that AA couple, Jay and Nancy, Jancy, and that marriage got good, and my career got really good, and Nancy's career got good, and our sober lives got good. And when you stay and you do the work and you lead a life that's based on service, and you don't allow the gifts of the program to get in the way of the gifts of the program, and you don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle, and you don't leave 5 minutes after the miracle, there's nothing else that can happen but getting a good life. That's what happens. And I know it's a giving program, or that's what we say, but in the beginning, it isn't. It's a getting program. It's not a giving program. So in the beginning, we get, we have to get a sober date, and we have to get a home group, and we get a seat in that home group, and we get a posse that we can run with, and we get a book and a sponsor and a commitment and a God. And once we got those 8 things, then we start giving it away. And there was a woman, whoever said they were from Mobile, Alabama. There's a woman really instrumental in early AA in Los Angeles, and her name was Alabama Carruthers. And she had decades of sobriety and wore big brimmed hats and bolas and was Southern and dramatic and flamboyant and pushy. And that Southern woman would push people who didn't have much time. Get over there and help sponsor that newcomer. And people would look at her and go, "Lady, what do you got?" I've got like 9 weeks, honey. I got nothing. And she would put her hands on her hips and say, "I have been sponsoring people since I was 2 months sober in this program. I now have," whatever she had, 39 years, "and I have done that with a 100% success rate." And people would go, "Holy shit, you mean nobody you've ever sponsored has gotten loaded?" She goes, "Oh no, child, lots of them had gotten loaded and some have even died. I've stayed sober 100% of the time." And that's how this program works. I'm not powerful enough to get anybody sober or get anyone loaded. But when I'm in service and when I'm in action, I'm not into J. I'm into service, and that keeps me sober. And what am I? 35 years, 5 months, 21 days, assuming I put my head on the pillow sober tonight. And it's my first sobriety. I ran out of a burning building with my ass on fire, and I just haven't run back in yet. It doesn't mean I won't, but I'm certainly not planning to. And we got sponsors two of them, we each got a different sponsor. I saw this cartoon and it was looking from the back at an AA meeting, and you see the backs of all these people's heads. And at the very back of the room, there's a couple and his arm is around her and he's going, "Don't worry, babe. We'll find someone who'll sponsor us." And that love blooms on AA campus, the newcomer couple that's going to find one person to sponsor the two of them. Not advised. And we got sponsors and we worked the steps, and life got real good, and it does. And I'm not, what do you call it? Like fundamentalist. Not fundamentalist in AA. I'm a big believer in that, those last two paragraphs on page 164, where it says our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation, ... And so I've made some changes in the steps that I take people through. I do 3 half steps, 3.5, 4.5, 7.5. And those are really prep steps. So, my experience was, if you ask people, hey, why do we do a 4th step? The typical answers are to get rid of resentments. Well, anything else? Well, yeah, because it comes between 3 and 5, and my sponsor told me to. Anything else? I don't think so. People don't know why, and yet they hear, "Oh my God, writing a 4th step is so hard. It's like an encyclopedia, and it brings up all these feelings." And so people were ending up with a lot of trepidation about the 4th step and didn't really know why they were doing it, and they'd get caught up in the feelings. And so I created this little step 3.5, and it just was read step 4 in the 12 and 12, read step 4 in the big book, bottom of page 63 to the end of the chapter. And from those 2 readings, make a written numbered list of the rewards and payoffs that come from doing a 4th step. And you don't need to paraphrase. If the book says to be rid of the things that block us from the sunlight of the Spirit, you write to be rid of the things that block me from the sunlight of the Spirit. And if the book says to swallow and digest large chunks of truth about myself, then you write to swallow and digest large chunks of truth. And some of them you may need to invert. If the book says without this work, there can be little long-lasting sobriety or contentment, you could write to have long-lasting sobriety and contentment. And nobody that I've ever asked to do that exercise has come up with fewer than 18 rewards and payoffs, and nobody's come up with more than 52. And most people seem to get somewhere between 25 and 35. And by the time they finish that list, they're like, I know why I want to write a 4th step. Let me add it. And they're ready to do it. And they're writing to that end, and they don't get as caught up in the feelings. And then step 4.5 is the same thing. But why do we do a 5th step? And what are the rewards and payoffs? And there are a whole bunch of them, including that paragraph in the middle of page 75 that's sort of nicknamed the 5th step promises. And then the same when they finish 6 and 7 before they start 8 and 9. Why do we have to do this work? What are the rewards and payoffs that come? And I'm a big believer in that there's a difference. There's a real difference between an apology and an amends. And if there weren't, then the other name for the Bill of Rights would be the first 10 apologies to the Constitution, and it's not. It's the first 10 amendments to the Constitution to change for the better. And I think we need to do the work of 6 and 7. I need to do the work of 6 and 7 because I don't have an intervening God. If you do, then maybe you can say, humbly ask God to remove your shortcomings. I don't have a God that will do that. And so I do the work of 6 and 7, And then I'm ready to step into 8 and do that 3-column inventory. Who did I harm? How did I harm them? And what were the character defects at play? And only then am I ready to step out and make an amends. And step 8 says, made a list of all persons we had harmed. I became willing to make amends to them all. And 9 says, made direct amends to such persons, those we'd harmed. Nowhere does it say, except J, except ourselves. And so I don't know how y'all got here or what y'all did, but I hurt people without a doubt. I hurt people physically. I hurt them emotionally. I stole their time and their care and their trust and their peace of mind and sometimes their dope or their money. But I didn't hurt anybody as consistently or deeply as I hurt Jay. And so that became my first amends, and it was out loud, formal, in front of a mirror, eyeball to eyeball, not eyeball to chin, not eyeball to forehead, eyeball to eyeball. Out loud. My name is Jay Westbrook, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm sober today in a 12-step program, the 9th step of which is about making amends, and that's what I'm here to do. And I'm so sorry, included an apology. I'm so sorry that I did this, which caused or cost you this consequence. And the character defects at play were such and such. And I'm so sorry that I committed the crimes that caused you to go to the penitentiary where you were gang raped and separated from your family and then had to walk through the rest of your life with a felony record. And what was going on was I was selfish and self-centered and reckless and blah, blah, blah. And then we get to the ABCs. When I finish that list, A, it's my intention to never repeat these behaviors. I need to know if there's any other way I've harmed you and what can I do to set these right. And I close my eyes and I wait for the shift to happen. And I don't open my eyes until I feel that I've traded places with that person who just made the amends. And when I open my eyes, I'm the person to whom the amends has been made. And I'm looking in the mirror at the guy who made the amends. And I forgive what I can and identify what I'm not willing to forgive or not willing to forgive yet. And what would have to happen before I'd ever be willing to forgive that? And I want to tell you, I got up from that mirror a free man, and every single person I've taken through that process, they sit down and they giggle and it gets real silly, when they first start, and it takes about 12 or 15 seconds and it gets real fucking real fast. And I think a lot of us are the same as I am. We've hurt ourselves more consistently, more deeply than anyone else. And I want to tell you, when people get up from that mirror, that free man, free woman, and it's pretty amazing. And where am I on time? I got about 2 minutes left, I guess. And so what I'll tell you is I'm a really grateful alcoholic, and everything in my life that's good I owe to the AA repair shop. The AA repair shop is what I call this thing that we have. AA, obviously, is Alcoholics Anonymous and repair shop. I thought it was kind of cute, but it isn't. It's so much deeper than that, because R-E means again, and pair, P-A-I-R, means to bond or connect. And this Alcoholics Anonymous allowed me to reconnect and rebond with a loving God, and with myself, and with Nancy, and with a purpose for living, to live fully, love deeply, and serve others, and with a set of tools and principles that has allowed me to do just that. And I continue to do a little hospice consulting. I do it in the corrections community. I've been to different prisons in California and in Louisiana. The prison I go to more than any other, I've probably been there 9 times now, is Angola State Penitentiary right outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I will tell you, that it is the largest maximum security prison in the United States, and 89% of the men there will die there because it's Louisiana. And they give sentences like 340 years to life, 289 years to life. And we have built a world-class hospice. But the number that gets me at the largest maximum security prison in the United States is that 92% of the men there were under the influence when they committed the crime that put them there. And so when our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says we either get sober or we face jails, institutions, or death. Jails, institutions, or death, it's not being melodramatic. It's just telling you the facts. I got to add, that I learned from the warden, standing with him in the death chamber when he told me, Jay, I'm not unwilling to carry. And I will tell you that as we stood in that death chamber, I knew, he didn't, but I knew that had I been caught in Louisiana for the crimes I got away with in California and been caught, tried, convicted, and sentenced, I would have been in that death chamber under very different circumstances, and y'all would have had a different speaker tonight. So we're standing there, me and Burl Cain. What a great Southern name, Burl Cain. And Burl said to me, Jay, while I'm not unwilling to carry out the court-mandated consequences of the prisoner's behavior, I will tell you that every man who's executed in this room, I hold his hand, I tell him he's loved, and I tell him he's not alone. And that warden lives what any of you who have ever heard me speak have heard me say, and that is that God has no grandkids, only kids, and God doesn't make junk. God has no grandkids, only kids, and God doesn't make junk. And that's true no matter how many times I've walked out into that world and engaged in behavior to try and validate the lie that when God made me, he made junk. But it's a lie. God has no grandkids, only kids, and God doesn't make junk. That's it for me. I am a grateful alcoholic. My name is Jay Westbrook.